Share the Chalk, a basketball webcast designed with the intention to give coaches and players a platform to share their knowledge. As always, I want to start with my goal in beginning this webcast. It was to bring on individuals who I believe are truly adding value and will continue to add value to the basketball community and the coaching community. Today, we're fortunate enough to have one of the Oregon all-time greats, point guard Payton Pritchard, joins us today to talk about player development and individual skill workouts. Payton, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you taking the time. I first want to just kind of start with where your story began from a basketball standpoint, from a player development standpoint. What types of things were you doing early on, way back, elementary school, middle school, where your love for the game began? What types of things were you doing to improve your game?
I mean, my love for the game kind of started at a very young age. I played every sport growing up, but I kind of fell in love with basketball and football from the start. For me, obviously playing and all that's where I kind of fell in love with it. But from a young age, my dad had me doing a lot of different fundamental stuff, ball handling, layups, shooting with my left hand layups, like stuff that a lot of kids weren't doing. And I ended up mastering that at a young age, like just the little dribbles, just different drills as far as stationary and all that kind of stuff that I was ahead of the game as far as the other kids growing up.
From a shooting standpoint, ball handling and shooting, you're a very, very skilled player. I had the chance to be around you for 2 years. How did your workouts evolve as you went from that young elementary school age into your middle school and high school age? I know we talked before, your dad had a large impact on you with teaching you how to shoot the basketball, but how did your workouts kind of evolve? Did you have a trainer? Were you working out on your own? Were you working out with your dad? Talk about just how your workouts evolved as you got into middle school and high school.
So it was mostly with my dad growing up, and then he helped me so much, like you said, with my shooting and all that. But I think what's important for a lot of players is you got to have your go-to, which is my dad and all that. But in high school, we were starting to butt heads a little bit, and a trainer named and a guy named Casey Treheke. He moved out to Portland with a guy named Alan Crabb, who played for the Blazers, and he was his trainer. And then we kind of connected through that and became close family friends. And he ended up training me, which was a great outlet for me. And he kind of gave me a different perspective on things and just a different outlet when it came to basketball and in life. So big thanks to him because that was a very important time, and it definitely expanded my game through that. So for players, I think it's important to have not just one person, but you got to have two, three different people in your life throughout the time. Doesn't mean that they're all going to be there at the same time, but that you can hear knowledge from and talk with.
How much were you working on your game in middle school and high school? How often were you playing? How often were you working on your skills?
In middle school, I was probably working out at least 2 times a day, probably 3, but the third time was probably just playing. So I didn't start lifting until high school. But I was definitely doing about 2 workouts and then playing, and during football season that would change a little bit, but about that.
Okay, now I've seen you work out many times. Your workout and your work ethic it's second to none. It's something that I think is really what's made you the player that you are and has given you the success that you've had all the way through your high school career and your college career, and it will continue to serve you well as you move into the professional career. Take us through one of your workouts, and I know this, but I want you to kind of take us through it. And I'm sure you've changed some things, but how early are you showing up before practice? What types of things are you doing before practice? Obviously, then you go through your practice, and then what types of things are you doing after your practice to cool down but to continue to get work in?
So you're right. It has evolved over the years, but I mean, I probably show up at least an hour. Well, to be honest, I usually would lift about an hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours before practice, but it's probably about an hour and a half. The lift would be 20 to 30 minutes. Do it every day. And then I'd get on the court an hour before practice. And the start of college, it would just be different shots, try to make about 100 to 150, maybe 200 if I have enough time before practice. But this year kind of evolved, and I would take we had a GA named Bryce, or even some of our redshirt players who, were not playing, or even maybe managers, and I'd have them guard me 100 possessions before practice, different areas on the court, and just working on like game-like shots and stuff like that. So, and that kind of helped me because I think sometimes in practice you don't get enough reps going into a game, live reps. And I think for a player, like live reps is probably the most important thing because that's what you see in a game. So I would do that, and then I'd have practice, and then I would try to make about 150 catch and shoot, and then some off the dribble threes, and then obviously free throws to finish.
You talked about, a one way your workouts kind of evolved over the course of time as you're getting in game speed reps, game reps. I know as I've watched you work out at an extremely high clip in terms of the intensity, the way you dribble the basketball, the way you're getting into your shot quick. How important is it for players to work out at game speed as well as to work out game movements?
I think that's the biggest thing. For me, I think I approach it that I want the practice and what I'm doing outside of the game to be harder than what I'm going to see in the game. And I think that's really why I've had success, because when I'm in the game, it is easier. Guys are getting tired in the game when I'm almost fresher.
From a mental standpoint, what are you thinking about when you're working out? I kind of want to get a little bit into to the mental training that you do. You hit some big shots last year. That's something that I think you really took on in your senior year. You never shied away from the big moment and from the spotlight. What are you thinking about when you enter your workouts?
Really, I think when I enter my workouts and all that, I think I'm just trying to get my movements down. It's certain, I'm picturing people guarding me, certain places on the court I need to get, like certain shots, obviously at game speed, and just like rising or shooting a floater, just things I'm working on. I'm actually like trying to picture how I'm going to use this.
Well, you're joining us here from John Stockton's camp up in Spokane. You've been around a ton of great players. What have you learned from some of these great players that you've been around, had the opportunity to train with, that you utilize in your game?
I think honestly, I take things from every player. It doesn't matter the age, where they're at. I mean, if I like something about the game, I try to say something. And you just hear the different stories and the knowledge from everybody. You just take it all in, and at the end of the day, you got to create your own story. But you listen and you learn from different people's successes and failures.
From a competition standpoint, how much competition do you incorporate into your workouts? Obviously, you have someone guard you. You're trying to get game actions in. How much do you compete with yourself? How much do you try to bring other teammates in to compete during your workouts?
So I might be a little different. I'm very competitive, and obviously I want to compete and play all the time. But as far as working out goes, I can be a little selfish at times before practice and stuff. I like to get my reps in, and don't like to share necessarily. But now, if we were going to play ones or a shooting contest or something like that, then I'm all for that. But for the most part, I'm selfish in the fact that like I need to get my stuff in, and I'm going to, and I think every player that that has success is a little bit selfish because he gets in and he does what he needs to do to be great or whatever that is.
Last question here before we move into just a couple little questions off the cuff. I've been around you. I know you're athletic. I know you're quick. But I also know that there's a lot of guys that you've played against who are quicker, who jump higher. Now, I'll never forget that dunk you had in the Pac-12 tournament. You got up there with that left hand against Washington, I think it was. But why are you able to have the success that you have when you're not always the most athletic, you're not always the quickest, you don't always jump the highest? what is it that separates you from some of those players who are more athletic than you?
I mean, that's a tough question because like I think every player has certain things to him that make him really hard to guard or just a great player. And some guys can really jump, some guys are quick, some guys are fast, and I think for me, I'm like deceptively really quick, and especially when the ball is in my hands, I can change speeds quickly and change directions fast and make people shift. So I think that's what makes me hard to guard, and for other players that I keep players off balance and they don't know where I'm going to go. I can pass, shoot, go by them. So that's probably the biggest thing is I keep people so off balance.
And I know this from firsthand experience. You're extremely skilled. It's the reason why I wanted to have you come on is you put a lot of time into your game. You constantly are working to improve. And every bit of your game is very skilled and very polished, and that's why you'll continue to have the success at the next level. For you, what does success look like moving forward?
Just preparing myself for the next level, the NBA, and getting most ready. And then when that happens, the draft night and whatever team I fall to is just getting ready for that opportunity and to take full advantage of it when my number gets called. And success. I'm not sure, but I know that I'll get everything out of my body and everything I can do to be the best player possible. So, I think that's how success is measured is how hard somebody pushes themselves and where they went with it. So,
What are you looking forward to most as you make the jump into the NBA?
just the competition level, just playing against the greats, and that's the biggest thing. It's just matching up and seeing where I am.
As you kind of start to think about that next jump and as you move to the next level to the NBA, I mean, the best of the best, what is going to have to change or what have you already started to change about your workouts and the way that you take care of your body?
I think eating is really important. It's a longer season, so nutrition is huge. So definitely like in there and like really uh, focusing on that. And then I've actually gotten a little bit more athletic, maybe because I've lost some body fat. That's helped, but I've also got stronger and just those little little tweaks that can make you a little bit more athletic will obviously help. As far as my workouts go, just keep on working on my skill level and adding different things to my game. But just always growing in that aspect.
Last thing I want to ask you about, I know this because, I'm very close with Coach Van Beesler, Evan up there, strength coach at Oregon. How important was it for you? You lifted every day or almost every day, whether that be game day, off day, whatever. You were always in the weight room. How important was that for you to maintaining your strength, building strength throughout the year, staying healthy? Kind of just talk about the importance of that, of lifting every day and working and training with Evan on a daily basis.
Man, that really changed me and got me on the right start again. And I think as you got to connect with your strength coach, and I listened to Evan and I trusted him, and we went every day. And he didn't kill my body, but we like called a thing called like microdosing, where we went 20 to 30 minutes a day, got work in. We kept adding, making gains throughout the season, and by the end of the season, I was almost getting stronger rather than where most players are like getting depleted and losing muscle and all that. I was gaining. Um, so big thanks to Evan there, and obviously the time that he put in with me, and that was huge. Um, I was very lucky to have somebody like him.
Well, Peyton, I appreciate you taking the time. You definitely shed light on a lot of different things from a player's perspective on player development, on strength training, from a microdosing standpoint, how important the weight room is. You're a very skilled player, and you're going to continue to have success as you kind of move forward in your journey. But thank you very much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jake. Thanks for having me.